Well, hello, my lovely cabin and crew for the great Starship Earth. This is Miss Jenny, and today's date is January 15th, 2020. The time where I'm at is 11:10 p.m., and I am just about to go get some sleep before I go to class in the morning. But I did want to get this out there because we've had some amazing things happen today. So the first thing is that the Senate trial for the impeachment is officially underway as of 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Washington, D.C. The the ritualistic, what is it they call it? Engrossment process. That's what they call it. What a bizarre title. Kicked off at 5 p.m. So naturally, we set up an event chart for this. Now, when we set up event charts, it gets a little complicated because there's always the question about when something actually begins, especially if it's a multi-stage process. And if you set up an event chart for any of those times, which part of the process does it actually describe and which one gives us the final outcome? So here's what I would say. The impeachment process has already been started. So any matters or issues regarding the presidency and how this will play out to its final bitter conclusion is in the chart for the start of the impeachment trial, which I'll put a picture of right here so you can see it. This chart that we're looking at now is the beginning of the Senate trial. The impeachment's done, it's official, it's over, there's no undoing it. Now the question is whether he stays in office or they drag him out kicking and screaming, right? Or by armed guard. And also how the trial will be handled. So this particular chart is extremely interesting, and I'm only going to go over a couple of highlights, just because I want to get out there. And before I get to that, I want to also point out that after I finished doing this lengthy analysis of this chart, which I have been writing on the Patreon page, by the way, I was in the library doing this, and when I got home and I was watching Rachel Maddow, here we were, this bombshell interview with Lev Parnas, who basically spills the tea and throws everybody under the bus. Oh my God. Wow. And it was only part one that we saw tonight. Part two is coming up tomorrow. Whew. Huge stuff. And this is how we're kicking things off. So, two major events of significant portent occurring this evening. Now, if you look at the chart, we're not necessarily seeing things you would expect, like, the grand conjunction or the giant flaming grand cross of doom or anything like that. What we are seeing is what's called a boomerang formation, or a yod with a trigger, as a boomerang trigger. So this is what's really nice about this chart, especially for those of you who are studying astrology. The yod is probably one of the hardest aspects to figure out what to do with, because it's a double quincunx, and the quincunxes alone are enough to make you cry trying to figure out how to interpret this. And as if it weren't fun enough, oh boy, the hits just keep on coming. Yods and quincunxes and these boomerang aspects, they don't necessarily perform identically in a natal chart as opposed to compared to an event chart, compared to a business chart. So it's a little tricky to deal with these things, which is why you're not seeing a lot of material on them. However, on this particular chart, not only is the chart ruler the moon, that moon is the focal point of this yod formation, which in more colorful terms is also labeled the finger of God, or the finger of fate, right? At the trigger of this yod, what we also have is Chiron in Aries. So there are a number of things that are going on with this Senate trial, and I'm just trying to give you some highlights right now. So the first thing we can expect is huge, over-the-top Greek tragicomedy level overacting. Like, oh my God. Boy, if you thought the impeachment hearings were colorful and full of bad acting, you've seen nothing yet. The second thing is we can also expect the people who are initiating this process, which in this case would be the House of Representatives, to literally come out fighting. They are ready to go to the mat with this, because, I say this because Pollux rises on the chart, and Pollux is the immortal twin of the two twins, Pollux and Castor. And Pollux is also the patron god of pugilism or boxing. Pollux is a fighter and will not let a challenge go. So with the House of Representatives being described under the terms of Pollux, you know they're coming out swinging and they're going to take this all the way to the mat. So this should be interesting. We're going to get to see a side of Democrats we haven't seen yet. Now, or the Democratic leadership, current Democratic leadership, let's put it that way. I really hate these political labels, but in terms of identifying the group, it's the current Democratic leadership we're talking about right now. Okay. Now, with that said, the other thing that I thought was interesting is that there seems to be, and will continue to be, an issue with sensitive information that's going to be kept away from, or obstructed, impeded, like somebody's literally trying to bury this information. Now, if you've been watching U.S. politics for any length of time this last couple of years, you know this is nothing new, right? So you don't need a psychic or an astrologer to tell you that part. It's just par for the course. What's interesting is that this is specific to the Senate trial. So we have Mercury under combust to the sun. It's literally being burned up by the sun because it's too close to it. So there's always this feeling of being overwhelmed or dominated or in fear of someone in a position of authority, literally under someone's thumb. It's not a great position to be in because you're literally so incapacitated you have no ability to act and protect yourself. You just get burned up, right? The sun represents authority and leadership, right? People in positions of authority, people in positions of leadership. Now, obviously, the first thing we would think is, oh, that's got to represent Trump. Maybe not so much. Remember, this is the Senate trial. So this would refer specifically to someone who's in a position of ultimate leadership or the big man in charge in the Senate trial, or the Senate, which, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's Mitch McConnell. So Mitch McConnell may be the linchpin or the key to these more sensitive documents or information or communications that are being prevented from coming forth. So I thought this was interesting because if all the information coming out of the Lev Parnas interview, where he basically threw half the country under the bus and like 2/3 of the administration, if that's not the sensitive information they're worried about, and there's still more damaging things that they are worried about, like literally the last few things that are the most critical, vital, like the heartbeat, like taking the heart out of a body, right? It's the last thing that keeps everything alive. You got to protect it with everything you've got. If there's still more sensitive information than what we're hearing now, it's got to be, I can't even imagine. And that appears to be the case. So everything in the Lev Parnas interview, as damaging as it is nothing compared to what they're still trying to hide and hang on to. I can't imagine how much worse it could possibly get than that. But we will see. And again, it's a person in a position of leadership or power in the situation, which would be the antagonist. So the House of Representatives would be the protagonist in this situation. They are Pollux rising with the moon ruling them. The antagonist would be the 7th house. Well, lo and behold, the sun, this person in position of leadership, this gatekeeper, sits on the 7th house cusp. So this is literally the person who stands at the doorway between good and evil and decides whether you can go across one or the other, or maybe neither. I really think that might be Mitch McConnell. But I don't know how these things are configured and who has what position where. So your guess is literally as good as mine as far as who the sun actually represents. But you can bet your bottom dollar, Skippy Pie, that whoever it is sitting on top of some explosive, like nuclear level information that they're with life and limb trying to keep from getting out. Now, with all of that said, I'm going to finish up here. My honest belief is that this will end well. My honest belief, because I have to believe that. The other is that loyalties will turn on a dime during this trial. So people who say that they're in one position or another may be giving lip service, but at the end of the day, their loyalties will turn on a dime, and that's from either side. So that's a bit of a dramatic, suspenseful thing there. The other is that with all of the drama and all of the this huge like bombshell information that they're desperately trying to protect with life and limb and keeping everybody under their thumb to keep it quiet and protected, there is also a very strong desire to champion the underdogs. There are a lot of people trying to do the right thing in this situation. There's a whole lot going on here. So, right. Sorry, I'm trying to do this really fast. So, with that said, I give this trial 5 to 6 weeks. I see it coming to an end or a climax, which would basically be the end as well, right? The final decision. 5 to 6 weeks from now, which is going to put us in the last week of February, first week of March. And that's also going to be about the same time that the December eclipse gets its final activation. So this is going to be huge. So let's watch and see what happens. So if you're interested in actually reading and going a little bit slower, the breakdown of how we came to these conclusions and the analysis and all of the other information, I don't have time to put in a video right now. You are welcome to join my Patreon page and become a subscriber. $1 a month. It's 2 cups of coffee a year, $12 a year, right? And you'll get access to this article and all that information, among other things, many more articles, stuff like that. And you'll be able to ask questions so that you can ask questions and learn as you go along. Otherwise, that's it. Let's see how this whole can of worms opens up and spills, because boy, it's going to be such a show. Such a show. All right, this has been Miss Jenny with Primal Girl Wellness and Down to Earth Astrology. And keep your chin up. We're heading in the right direction. Rocking and rolling along here. Bye.